Where superheroes often rely on their powers to help them save the day and beat back the baddies, supervillains often rely on something that actually brings them closer to their humanity than you might expect: their intellect. Whether they are super smart when it comes to strategy or just even creativity, their ability to see outside the box allows them to come closer to their own humanity because they have a more realistic view of the world's atrocities. A lot of these supervillains without powers embody more human flaws and traits than their heroic counterparts, but at the same time have to work harder to beat those they are up against. And often it is the lengths at which they are forced to go to achieve their goals that causes us to label them villain. Today we will be counting down the top 10 supervillains with no powers. There is actually a good number of villains that do not rely on powers to win the day, so if I left out your favorite one, be sure to let me know in the comments below. Now, let's get counting. Number 10. Dr. Von Doom. Yes, of course, you are right, Dr. Von Doom possesses magical abilities, but these weren't really used or incorporated into the comics until the early 2000s. So for this list, I want to focus on Dr. Von Doom as an intellect and scientist, non-powered. Before he was using magic in the comics, he managed to actually kidnap the Purple Man, and using mind control, rule the world. The Purple Man actually tried to cause Doom to kill himself, but his will was too strong, and he was able to withstand the Purple Man's influence, which, as the Purple Man even said, was nuts, as no one had been able to do that before. What? He also often ends up being a pretty decent leader when it comes to global domination of any sorts in the comics, which makes him a really interesting and complex supervillain, one that you sometimes can't help but root for. He also almost defeated the Fantastic Four in Annual 2 of Volume 1 of their self-titled series, using some kind of poison berry juice that he had them drink at what they thought was a peacemaking dinner. He caused them to battle and almost destroy one another. With Dr. Doom, the proof is in the juice. Number 9. Bullseye. Bullseye's story and name are kind of a mystery, as they have been retconned many times in the comics. There have been backstories for him that have involved him murdering his abusive father, setting his childhood home ablaze as a youth, that his story is nothing interesting, but that his mother was a prostitute. I don't know. What we do know is that Bullseye is a crack shot with just about anything, including playing cards. He works as a mercenary and freelance assassin, and even once teamed up with Deadpool. Yep. Bullseye is often presented as a nemesis and thorn in the side of Daredevil. He even managed to kill Elektra using his playing cards to slit her throat in Daredevil Volume 2 issue 181. And she isn't the only one of Daredevil's girlfriends to have met her end at the hands of Bullseye. Nope. His iconic Bullseye scar was actually given to him in revenge by Daredevil later on in Volume 3 issue 49 of the series, after Bullseye threatened his current girlfriend at the time, Mila. Number 8. Harley Quinn. Though some may simply think of Harley as a sidekick to the Joker or partner to Poison Ivy, since the New 52 and in some instances even before that, she has really come into her own. Harley Quinn was created originally to simply be Joker's sidekick and girlfriend, who was blindly, madly in love with him in the Batman animated series. From there, her character astounded even her creators as they watched her popularity soar with DC fans, and she ended up also making her way into the comics. Harley has no real powers, which is amazing considering all that she has accomplished. As she is, or was, a doctor, often presented as a psychiatrist who fell in love with the Joker during his time at Arkham Asylum, she is quite brilliant, but she's also quite mad, which, like the Joker, usually works to her advantage, simply making her more dangerous and deranged when it comes to her criminal tactics. Typically armed with her oversized mallet, she has taken on many of the goody-goodies of the DC world, even once hitting Supergirl through a window with her mallet. She has been shown in the animated series and comics successfully capturing Batman, murdering the children of Gotham via free video games given to them — never trust a deal that is too good to be true, my friends — and has even been a successful deranged serial killer with a basement full of body parts. Next level madness with Harley. Number 7. Norman Osborn. So granted, Norman Osborn is also the Green Goblin who, due to the serum he ingested, sort of has superpowers, but I really do mean sort of. While the serum enhanced his intellect somewhat, he was already super smart, so as I see, the serum really did more harm to Osborn than it did good. Mostly it just made him crazy and even more obsessive than he already was. When talking about Norman Osborn as a villain, what I think most people focus on is his intellect, his creativity as a villain, and his wealth. Known as one of Spider-Man's main arch nemeses, he has gone to great lengths to cause hurt to Peter Parker. Never mind all the times he's attempted to kill Peter. Remember when he bought the Daily Bugle and put a $5 million bounty on Spider-Man's head? He has also used his wits to hurt Peter and to terrorize those closest to him, constantly putting Aunt May in harm's way as well as MJ. And remember that time he impregnated Gwen Stacy? Just ugh. Number 6. Black Mask. You may recognize Black Mask from the Batman War Games comic, which was a Batman family crossover event in 2004. Though Black Mask has been a Batman villain since the 80s, his real name is Roman Sionis. Born into wealth, his parents cared more for their social standing than they did him, leading him to receive brain damage as an infant. After his parents died, he inherited the family business, which went bankrupt under his management, and was bought out by Wayne Enterprises. He was later struck by lightning and flung into a grave, which Roman took as a sign of rebirth, which is interesting. If lightning tossed me into a grave, I feel like I'd be more inclined to interpret it as, you know, a sign of death. He fashioned an ebony mask out of his father's casket and swore revenge on Wayne Enterprises, which obviously put him into direct conflict with the Batman. In the events of War Games, we saw him take over Gotham City and torture and kill Stephanie Brown, who had been Batman's most recent Robin at the time. He is a sicko to be reckoned with for sure. As before the events of War Games, we actually see him in Catwoman Volume 3, Issue 16, torturing Catwoman's sister. He kidnapped her, killed her husband in front of her, and then forced her to eat him. Yeah, he crazy. Number 5. Kingpin. Another Daredevil villain, Kingpin is the crime boss to pretty much end all crime bosses. Not gonna lie, would love to see him and Black Mask duke it out over something. Both are ruthless and twisted. Kingpin was actually introduced in the comics in the Amazing Spider-Man Volume No. 1, Issue 50. He has been an overarching villain for Spidey throughout the years, which is why I'm sure it didn't surprise many when he played the role of the big bad in Into the Spider-Verse. But this villain really came into his own when Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli teamed up to bring us the Daredevil story arc Born Again in the 80s. This story arc saw him completely destroy Matt Murdock's life, taking away his home, his finances, and leaving him with his costume in tatters after getting a hold of Daredevil's secret identity. As you also know, he's a huge Daredevil villain. Spoilers! Number 4. Mysterio. Even Mysterio's introduction was traumatic for Spider-Man. Quentin Beck was introduced to us in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1, Issue 13, where he committed crimes under Spider-Man's guise that were so convincing, he actually made Peter Parker think he had a split personality, right off the bat causing Peter to question himself. As in the MCU's Far From Home, in the comics, Beck is a skilled VFX artist who uses his know-how to trick Spider-Man and often causes him to question reality. To be honest, the made-up backstory he had in Far From Home almost had me convinced, so I can imagine how hard of a villain he is to deal with for Parker. He also has played villain to Daredevil in the Guardian Devil storyline, where he did a slew of terrible things to Murdock, including injecting him with a serum that made Daredevil more violent, making his girlfriend Karen think she had a terminal illness, and hiring Bullseye to assassinate him. Like Bullseye needs any convincing. Number 3. Dr. Octopus. Doc Ock is considered one of the greatest villains when it comes to the Spider-Man comics, and for good reason. Doc Ock is a man who solely relies on his intelligence and his self-made gadgets to get things done, and he has used his smarts to torture Spider-Man since he was first introduced as a villain in the original Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1, Issue No. 3. His dastardly plots have included him marrying Aunt May just to get a plot of land she'd inherited with a uranium deposit, and swapping bodies with Peter, leaving him to die in his old, failing body when he adopted the mantle of Superior Spider-Man. In the PS4 game, we get to tragically watch his transformation from brilliant mind to diabolical villain in a plot involving him creating and using a bioweapon on the city of New York and killing thousands of people. Number 2. Lex Luthor. Known as being one of the most brilliant supervillains in comic book history, Lex Luthor is Superman's greatest foe. Luthor's hatred for Superman has always fueled him and many of his plots, and he has cited many reasons as to why he hates the Man of Steel, including but not limited to blaming Kal-El for his hair loss. Yeah. Even when his plots involve becoming elected president of the United States and seemingly making the world a better place, the real objective of any of his plots seems to be to overthrow the former Boy Scout Superman. When he was president, he did so by making both Superman and Batman public enemies, and he's even gone so far as to found the Injustice League, comprised of Justice League members' nemesis, in an attempt to get rid of Kal-El. Luthor is such a brilliant and diabolical man that he has even succeeded in killing Superman, not just once, but twice. comics, both in The Death of Superman and All-Star Superman. Number 1. The Joker. You've heard me say that Joker was my favorite villain before, and for good reason. He is also one of the most famous supervillains in comic book history, one of the most thought of when it comes to fabricating any kind of list in your mind of the greats. And even without any superpowers before, he has earned this through his sheer mad ingenuity. The crazy thing about the Joker is if Batman wanted to, he could just kill him. But in killing him, he would basically be admitting defeat. So either way, the Joker wins. The Joker is also responsible for some of the most vile deeds ever committed in the comics, and through it all has very limited attachment to those deeds or the people that he has hurt. Anytime his past is delved into, it turns out to be false or not canon, retconned, or just a fabricated lie, making him one of the most mysterious characters in comics. The Joker has been responsible for paralyzing Barbara Gordon, killing Jason Todd, sort of, and numerous others in the comics, including but not limited to a school full of children. Every reincarnation we see of this character is always darker than the last, and more often than not, non-powered. In the Injustice Fighting Games World Story Mode, his character causes Superman to kill Lois Lane and their unborn child by tricking him into thinking that she was Doomsday. Dark! Thank you so much for watching, and if you want more awesome stories about supervillains without superpowers, let us know in the comments below. It's crazy to me how many of Batman's villains are they're just people. So many of them do not have powers, just madness and vendettas. As you are on your way down to the comments, be sure to tap that subscribe, click that like, and ring our bell so you never miss out on our newest nerd content. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight, reminding you as always to stay nerdy, YouTube.